Below the element section is the Oscillators section. A SampleTank element can contain multiple oscillators. With synth elements, the oscillators are similar sounds recorded with different takes of the same source note. The oscillators then get detuned and modulated with our syntronic drift algorithm to create a larger and more animated sound source like you find in classic analog synthesizers. When an element has multiple oscillators, you'll see boxes for the various oscillators appear at the top of the oscillator section. Here you can choose which oscillator to edit with the oscillator controls. If an element has only one oscillator, then you will always be editing the single oscillator in the element. The oscillator controls are simple. You have a knob for pitch that adjusts the tuning of the oscillator over a 2-octave range in cents. Then you have a fine-tuning knob which adjusts the oscillator tuning by 50 cents up or down. The fine-tune is what you'll use when detuning the multiple oscillators of a synth element or simply to retune any SampleTank element to match another instrument in your production. The oscillator section also has controls for pan position and level of the oscillator. Beneath the oscillator section is the Modulations section. Here you can program any of the 32 modulation routes to assign a source, destination, and amount for the modulation. You can also click the Matrix button to open the full modulation matrix, where you have access to additional parameters to each modulation, such as curve, polarity, and modifier. At the bottom left of the Edit panel, below the Modulation section, you'll find the Play section. This is where you set the keyboard mode for the element between poly for polyphonic instruments, mono for monophonic instruments that only play one note at a time, and legato for monophonic instruments that do not re-trigger the sample or envelope start when you play connected notes. The regular mono mode will re-trigger the sample and envelopes with every note played regardless of whether they're connected or not. For legato elements, you can adjust the glide time and glide curve, which is the smooth pitch change between connected notes. Glide is also often called portamento. Note that glide only works with the legato keyboard mode. It has no effect when the keyboard mode is set to mono or poly. The Play section also has a control for polyphony. Here you can limit the amount of notes that an element will use. This is helpful for maximizing the processor power of your computer, as well as for creative uses. Finally, there's a velocity curve control that lets you adjust how incoming MIDI velocities get applied to the velocity modulations of the instrument, such as velocity to volume, filter cutoff, or pitch.